let's start. Okay, you guys can start now. Okay.
Okay, I'll share screen. I'll share my screen. Can everyone see my screen clearly?
I see it.
Yes, I can.
San, can you try talking so we can check your sound?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start now then. Good afternoon, professors and committee members. Today I'm going to present my senior project, the game Yet Another Survivor. Right now, let me introduce my team members. I am Gavin and my friend here is Phongsapak. I'm sorry, my camera is backing out, so I'll stop video for now. Just for now. I'm sorry about that. Let me continue. Right now, there's a successful horde shooter game called Vampire Survivors, and in the game, players plays as a medieval character. What the game is about is that the player attacks and fends off different enemies, and when the player defeats the enemies, they can collect the blue crystals on the ground, dropped from the enemies to gain experience points to level their character up. And when the character levels up, they are able to upgrade their skills in order to defeat stronger enemies. And the objective of the game is simple. The player has to survive as long as possible while defeating as many enemies as possible. So now, according to reviews on Steam, which is the biggest online game store in the world, most of the reviews are positive. However, there are some people who spot some flaws in the game. As you can see, the character in Vampire Survivors attacks automatically in front and behind them. Also, the only movement in the game is walking up, down, left, and right. So without any movement mechanics. So with this aforementioned feature, some players might find the games kind of boring. So we are creating a game where we implement the movement and attack mechanics and make them more exciting. In our game, Yet Another Survivors is also a single-player 2D top-down isometric game with similar objectives, which are to survive the longest and defeat as many enemies as possible. However, we added some mechanics to make the gameplay more interesting. We added several movement mechanics, which is grappling and dashing. The attacks on the character in the Yet Another Survivor now require player aim, unlike in Vampire Survivors where the character just attacks in front and behind them. We also changed the skill upgrade system to a skill tree, which the users can customize their character according to their playstyle. Also, we have a map mechanic where the level of the game is constantly changing so that the player feels like they're playing in different maps every time.
Okay, let's take a look at the requirements. So based on the players' needs and expectations, we have come up with a few design requirements. To prevent the game from being repetitive and boring, the game needs to provide the player with multiple ways to interact with their environment that will affect the gameplay. And the game should provide the player with a wide range of skills for the player to choose their play style. We wanted the player to have some flashy mechanics for a fast-paced game, so the game is designed to provide the player with different ways to navigate through the environment. We also have taken performance and visual effect into consideration when designing the game. This is to ensure that the game provides an immersive and good user experience without much regard to the hardware configuration of the players. Next, let's take a look at the gameplay concept. So it is an 2D action 2D top-down game with pixel art graphics, taking inspiration from games like Vampire Survivor and Mob Mania. The objective of this game is to survive against the hordes of enemies as long as possible by defeating them before the player gets overwhelmed. The enemy will get stronger throughout the game, and the player can get stronger by defeating enemies and leveling up. The player will have one active skill that will boost their strength for a short duration and will have to recharge afterward. Additionally, the player can further increase their strength by spending skill point earned by leveling up and use it to upgrade powerful new skills in the skill tree. The map of the game is a simple rectangular map with traps and obstacles randomly placed around the map. The map will continuously change with the mechanic of terrain manipulation, changing the theme of the environment and the location of the obstacles to create diversity in gameplay. Next is the story. The story takes place in 24th century after a nuclear world war, where there are only a small numbers of humans left alive, and the animals either went extinct or mutated and adapted to their new environment. These animals are extraordinarily strong and extremely hostile toward humans. So in a secret lab, scientists are simulating invasion of those animals to learn about their behaviors. And a primitive way of fighting was chosen instead of modern weaponry, since the modern weaponry could easily defeat them. Also, the environment will be changing since the fight can take place in different circumstances. The story of this game was inspired by films like The Matrix and Ready Player One. Next is character and enemies. Okay, so the players plays as a character inside the simulation. Currently, there is only one playable character, and there are 10 enemies. The player health is displayed on top of the character as a health bar, while the health bar of the enemy will not be displayed. Taking hits from enemy will reduce the player health, and the character will die and lose the game if their health reaches 0. The player can regain health by waiting for the health to slowly regenerate, or by defeating enemy as there is a low chance to restore health, or unlocking one of the passive in the skill tree.
Here are the enemies in the game.
Yes.
What they look like. And I'm sorry, you can continue.
Okay. Next is map and level design concept. So we wanted to offer the player various way to maneuver through the map, encouraging player to experiment with different strategies and allowing them to be creative when defeating enemies. So this was achieved by implementing movement mechanics, which are dashing and grappling. There will be obstacles that appear randomly on the map that will block the player movement, and there will be traps around the map that can hurt the player. And the map will continuously change to keep things fresh. Okay. Next, movement mechanics. So the player can move around by holding the WASD keys, and the players can dash by pressing spacebar while holding the movement keys. Next slide, please. Okay, so in dashing, the player gains a burst of speed, which is used to dodge enemies and reposition themselves. Another movement mechanic is grappling. This is where the player grapples onto an object and then pull themselves to it. And the player can grapple by left-clicking an obstacle. Next is the map mechanics. So the environment changing mechanic was implemented to add a sense of variety and challenge to the gameplay. After the player has defeated a certain number of enemy, the level in the game will start to gradually change. Each tile in the level will slowly change into another theme. The obstacle and trap in the level will gradually increase and change their position, which will increase the difficulty level of the game. Then after a certain amount of time, the player will have a brand new level with more obstacle and traps. The map transformation will stop and then it will be triggered again when the player defeats more enemies. Next is the trap. So there are 3 types of traps. The spike trap, the plant trap, and the bear trap. So the bear trap and the spike trap activates when the player steps on them. The spike trap deals damage once, and the bear trap deals a little bit less damage to the player, but it slows the player movement down for a few seconds. And for the wine trap, it activates when the player gets close to it and damages the player by spinning around in an area. For the combat mechanics, the player can start attacking in the direction of the cursor by pressing F keys. The player will continuously attack automatically until it is toggled off. The active skill can be activated by pressing E. This will spin the swords around the player for a few seconds, then it will be on cooldown for 5 seconds. The player will need to choose when to activate the skill in order to maximize its effectiveness. Okay, next is the level system and skill tree. So defeating enemies give the player experience points. If they gain enough experience points, they will level up and gain a skill point. The higher the player level is, the more health and attack power they will have. The skill tree is a game mechanics that allow the player to customize their character in a specific way by spending a skill point earned during leveling up in the gameplay and used to unlock and upgrade skills. So there are 5 grades of skills. In the beginning, the player can only unlock the skills that belong in the first grade, which is the lowest, as you can see there. Each grade consists of 2 choices, which is left and right. Once the player upgrades a skill once, the skill in the next grade will be unlocked. Okay, next slide, please.
So next will be about development. So we chose to use Unity for our game engine. So the reason why is that you see Unity is an extremely versatile game engine that offers a lot of flexibility with a big community. So also Unity has a powerful scripting system that allows us to write code in C#, which is a language that we both are familiar with, since we are both experienced with Java, and the syntax in Java is somewhat close to C#. And in addition, Unity has a very good cross-platform compatibility, which means we can easily port the game into different platforms such as Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and stuff. But even though for now the game is only available for Windows, but it's very easy to scale into other platforms. And one of the most important reason of why we choose Unity is that it has, first of all, it has a huge asset store, because our team doesn't have an artist. And also Unity has a very big and supportive community of developers, which is which we see very, very beneficial, because we both are just starting out in the game development field. So that's about why we use Unity as our development. Next, we'll talk about our experimental setup and method, or in other words, the testing phase. So we did a balance testing for our game. We tested the game on four different people who have like different amounts of experience playing these kind of games, from having no experience at all to an expert. The test lasts around 15 to 30 minutes, and the platform for the testers is only in Windows. How we handle the testing is that we just let the participant. I'm sorry, did Ajahn just disconnected?
Ah, ooh,
Did Ajahn Chin just disconnected?
I think so. But he will know. I'll make sure that he's on again. Hang on.
I'll wait then.
Just wait a bit. I'll see if I can contact him. Okay. Okay. Wait. Okay. I think you can carry on now.
Okay.อาจารย์ชิน can hear me
สวัสดี
clearly
ครับมันหลุดมาแล้วครับ
อาจารย์ชินได้ยินชัดใช่ไหมครับ
ได้ยินครับ
Okay ครับ I'll continue now. So the testing phase will last around 15 to 30 minutes, and the platform for the tester is only in Windows. So how we handle the testing is that we just let the participant play a few rounds of our game while we are observing them playing the game. Then both during gameplay and after they feel like they have played enough, we discuss with each of their experience and their opinions on the balance of the game. So we use thematic analysis method to analyze the qualitative feedback of the participants. This method is taking both all of the participant opinions and also what we got from observing them play the game, concentrating on them and figuring out patterns of issues that the tester had, so that we can identify all the problems and that are more obvious and prioritize the problems that are more obvious. The first participant has a very little experience on playing these kind of games, or in fact, this person doesn't really play video games that often at all, but she's very interested to try out the game. He's using just a standard Windows computer, and the second participant doesn't have much experience on hard shooting either, but he plays a lot of mobile games, and also this person uses a virtual machine on their MacBook while testing to run it on Windows. And the third participant plays a lot of PC games, but not so much of hard shooting. And lastly, this person plays a lot of hard shooting games, and with the most important being he has more than 50 hours on the game we inspired from, which is Vampire Survivors. So he can give very nice opinions, and he has very nice PC. So here are the balance issues that we got from testing with these four participants, and these issues will be documented for future development. So overall, the testers actually enjoyed the gameplay. They each played many rounds, and each round they tried different skills in the skill tree, and they also were very helpful in finding bugs and balance issues that we want to implement. So firstly, you can notice the size of the normal attack from this character. The testers agree that the normal attack in range of the character is far too small. The auto attack, especially when there are many enemies, should be the main source of dealing damage. But from what we observed and from what we observed from them playing the game, the participants don't really utilize normal attacks anymore, since it doesn't do much and it's far too small. People do be just running around, dodging not getting hit by enemies, and when their active skill is back again, they get close to the enemies again, press the active skill, and they went back to running away from the enemies again, which is not intended. Another thing participants suggested that we also agreed on is that there should be unique mechanics for each map theme. For now, with our limited amount of resources, we only have 10 different types of enemies and only few types, which is we only have 3 to 4 types of traps. It would be a lot more interesting if each of the map themes are different. Like there should be unique mechanics for each of the map themes, and there should be unique traps for each. So, or if we wanted to take it to the next level, we can implement unique mechanics for each theme so that the players feel like they are playing in different maps that are constantly changing. And another issue that the enemies sometimes appear right in front of the players. So 1 or 2 enemies appearing wouldn't be too much of an issue, but the thing is we have a spawning mechanic where sometimes enemies spawn in large groups. As you can see in the left corner right here, the enemy just appear, a group of enemy just appears out of nowhere. In the footage here, isn't they didn't spawn close to the player, but there are chances that this group of enemies like this will appear out of nowhere, very fairly close to the players, and the players doesn't have any time to react or come up with any strategy to fight them. So the solution would be to make them spawn a bit further away from the players, ideally outside of the screen, and make them take time to reach the player so that the player can react accordingly. From what I observed from the participants, first of all, the game is literally unplayable without a mouse since it requires aiming. There is one participant, which is the second participant, who didn't use a mouse to play the game, and she had a very, very hard time aiming her normal attacks. And another issue worth mentioning, this one the participant didn't mention, but this is what we noticed from when we observe the testers play the game, is that they don't make use of grappling that much. As we figured, it is because one, they are very focused on the enemies, as they did not pay attention to the obstacles that they can grapple to. And two, even though they don't use normal attacks that much later in the game, as we mentioned, they still try to aim the cursor at the enemies, and we figure that it is kind of difficult to give up aiming and instead aim at an obstacle and then click the obstacle again, and that's kind of difficult to players, as we see, especially if they don't have a mouse. We are thinking about making the grappling mechanic more impactful and more rewarding by adding some mechanics to them, like making them deal contact damage to enemy as well while we grapple, so that the players think it's worth the effort of using the mechanic. And last but not least, as you might have noticed, this one participant also didn't mention much as well because it's a balanced test. The user interface needs to be improved by a lot. Right now the UI is working as intended, but it's just simple buttons and shapes from the default of Unity. So having a good looking user interface will definitely help with the player engagement. And I think that's all about our game, Yet Another Survivor. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Thank you. Any questions or any questions of Ajahn?
Can you go to the first few slide, please? The design, mechanic, design requirement. So yeah, actually, what are the way that what are the skills again? I think I missed that part of it. Like,
It's actually the skill tree, which is more. I mean, all of them are passive skills. Let me skip to the skill tree. So these are all the skill that current skill that we have at the moment. It's all passive skills for now. So what we meant by having range of skills, we also mean the skill tree, so that the player can select their skill and stuff.
all right, but is the skill tree kind of like you have to have I mean, in my mind, skill tree means you have like many level of skill, right? You have to unlock some of the first level skill before you can unlock the second level, and so on and so forth. Like, like prerequisite system.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
You don't have any of that yet, right?
I didn't explain very clearly. So the buttons that are in black, we cannot upgrade them. So we have to upgrade the bottommost one first. So at first we have two choices of upgrading regen or move speed, and when we click on either of them, we will unlock the second grade, and then when we upgrade the second grade at least once, the third grade will be unlocked, and so on and so forth.
But you
If
can
it-
upgrade the one that you have chosen before to
Yep.
higher level as well.
Yeah, we can choose to either upgrade upgrade in the second grade, which is choose between lifesteal or damage, or we can choose to upgrade our regen even further.
Okay.
Like
Yeah, but I mean, is this terminology right as a skill tree? I guess it could be skill. It's more like chain or something like this.
Yeah.
In like Diablo, for example, like the system. That is a skill tree in my mind. But yeah, okay, maybe that's why I got a bit confused of how this works. But anyway, yeah, it makes sense now. So are you submitting to like some kind of contest like NSC or anything like that?
We submitted to TGA, but it didn't get accepted in the first round, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, just asking. Yeah. And you have 4 tester at the moment, right?
Yes.
Is there anyone like has a lot of experience playing that type of game?
Yeah, there's one experience who has
Okay.
more than 50 hours
Okay.
playing Vampire Survivors.
Okay, I see. What is his main critique? Like anything?
He actually gave us a lot of opinions. Let me show you his
feedback. Okay.
Yeah, his feedback. So we did mention about the bear trap. So bear trap slows the player's movement. So he said the bear traps tethering effect lasted too long, and also we cannot dash out of the bear trap, which is very it's too difficult for them to run away from enemies. It should have effect, but not this much. And also some of the skill trees there are balances, since like there should be more balance needed for the skill tree. Like there's a skill called range, which there's a skill called range in the third or fourth grade of the skill tree, and they said it's the effect doesn't matter. Like the range increase doesn't really matter. He suggested to unique mechanic, and he suggested that dashing should give the player invulnerable frames. So
Okay,
so that
I think so. Basically, these really,
yeah. So
Okay.
those
Good.
details and those
Yeah,
things in detail and stuff.
okay, interesting.
Yep.
Okay, I don't have more comment. It's looking quite interesting. Yeah.
โอเคครับ so so I don't have more comments either, so but also I guess that's it for today, but you will have to wait for อาจารย์พิธิพล 's comment after he looked at your video presentation. Okay.
Will I receive any question from อาจารย์พิธิพลครับ
I think I'll give him your Discord.
Okay ครับ
อืม
I can you please inform him that I will be available anytime, even if he wants to like discuss in person or something.
I'll tell him. I'll send your Discord ID. All right.
It's alright, so it's okay.
Okay. Okay. So that's it for now. Thank you. อาจารย์ชินมากครับ and
โอเคครับขอบคุณครับ
and thank you
สวัสดีครับ
guys.
Thank you ครับ
ขอบคุณครับ
โอเคไปเดี๋ยว